Yeah, what's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Prison Break Raw. I'm your host, the one and only Big JD. Criminal activity was my drug of choice. Yes, it was. I used to live for that fix every single day. I would even go through withdrawals, thinking that, man, I got to get out there and get in the mix. I got to get into some shit before the day is over with. What do I got to do to get involved in something that's going to give me that thrill seek, that rush, that adrenaline rush, no matter what it is? What do I got to do to get another shot of that? Guilty as charged when it comes to like going on a sick one with meth, shards, or whatever you want to call them, broken windows, or even shooting up some black. Popping pills, smoking some weed, taking some LSD, maybe some shrooms, whatnot. It was all par for the course. But my main drug of choice was crime, money, the lifestyle, the respect, the fear, all of it. That was my driving point. I had dudes that were around me that all they wanted to do was get high. They were drug motivated. I was crime motivated. But what was it really all about? I had never really thought about what was driving me towards this other side of life. Was it a hatred for the system? Was it a hatred for myself, society, and everything and everybody in it? Did I just want to be an outlaw? I had been intrigued by all of that ever since I was young, since I was a little kid. I never did very well in school. School was like the most difficult thing in the world for me. I don't know what it was. Maybe I was stupid or what. But I just couldn't make sense of it. I mean, that changed when I had to educate myself in the prison system. My cellie had got me a bunch of books. I had taught myself all the basic mathematics, reading, writing, all that shit, and I eventually got a GED out of it. So obviously I wasn't that stupid. But my mind would always wander to other places, like I never wanted to be in school. It bored the shit out of me. So I started getting in trouble in school. But see, there were a lot of bullies in the environment that I grew up in. I was always fighting somebody. And what a lot of the older kids used to do with some of us younger kids is they would always stage gladiator matches. We would have to fight until somebody was knocked smooth out, bleeding and all that shit. There wasn't, okay, I've had enough. I've won some, I've lost some. It was just the way it was, but I grew up that way. Different time back in those days. But what draws anybody into the use of drugs? Why do people get high? What is this escape from reality that people choose to get away from it all in? I understand why people get high. You have to understand the mechanics of getting high. What makes a person want to leave it all behind and sacrifice their entire life for some drug? Their children, their jobs, everything. I've seen people get out of prison, get a good-ass fucking job. We're talking a bomb-ass job, driving a nice car. Next thing you know, they show up in the neighborhood. Yeah, man, you know what? I could get high just this one time. Next thing you know, they're stripping out that truck or that car that they're in. They're calling in sick to work. They're wearing the same clothes for 2 or 3 days. I've seen it numerous times. And before too long, they're back in prison. For me, I would get out, and I wouldn't get high or anything like that. I was always looking for something to get into. How can I make that money? I always knew what it felt like to be without. To watch the other kids wearing nice clothes, nice shoes and all that, and you're wearing the same shoes in the 6th grade that you wore in the 5th grade. I've been through that. I've been through all of that stuff. I know how valuable reputation is. I know how much fear and respect is worth. It's worth its weight in gold because you have to go out there and you have to mine for that shit. You have to be like a prospect out there up in them hills, panning for gold. The people that find the little pebbles, yeah, they may get a good pat on the back, but it's the guy that finds the nugget is the one that gets all the respect. I started pushing weight when I was a little kid. I learned how to measure dope, to weigh dope by grams before I even knew simple mathematics. I knew about cutting and on all of that stuff. I knew what to look out for. I knew what to look out for when somebody's trying to milk you for information. I learned all that from OGs. Back in them days, it's like the older dudes, you were striving to be just like them. You aspired to be what they were. I remember when I was 13, 14 years old, I used to lie and tell people I was 16 and 17. Because I always wanted to be older. I wanted to be at that level with them. It became an addiction because of a lot of the things that I had experienced. The abuse, being bullied and shit, never doing good in school, always being picked last for everything. I looked at the streets and I looked at crime as a means to escape all of that. Because I could be whoever I wanted to be as long as I worked hard enough to earn that reputation. Whether it be just popping a cap on somebody, whether I kill him or just injure him, stabbing somebody, fighting, having a knot of cash in your pocket, nice clean clothes, fresh shit, fresh gear, top of the line cologne, all that stuff, riding around on a Honda scooter and shit, 15 years old. It was a rush. I had always done drugs from the time where, I really started getting into them from the time I was about maybe 16 all the way up into my 20s, but they were never the motivating factor. It's like a lot of people when they get out of prison, the first thing they do, they go back to wherever it was they came from. If it's crystal meth, that's their drug of choice. They're playing Twister with that Pookie one time and then they're on a sick one. Or if it's that tar they like, they slam themselves a shot and they're on a sick one. For me, it was never like that. I always went back to the streets like, so how can I make a few bucks? I need to get this car. Or I want to get all my clothes back. Everything that I lost, I want to get it all back. What do I got to do? Whether it's pushing bogus credit cards, running somebody on a job, busting a lick, whatever it was, stealing cars. I used to steal all kinds of cars. It was easy for me. And it was a rush every single time. We used to pop open people's garage doors out in nice neighborhoods, and it was like, what's behind door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3? You never knew what was in them garages. Me and my cousin Dave used to do it all the time. That cat used to drive around in an RV, pull up on the side of Coke machines, and jiggle those barrel locks, those tubular locks, and pop them open, pull all the coins and the dollar bills out of them. It was a rush. All of it was. It got to the point to where it was so bad that I would dread, like, getting a job. And there were times when I had, like, a job, like a legit job, but it was boring to me. Whether I was sitting in an office, I was working in some kind of a factory or a warehouse or something. I just couldn't do it. I did landscaping, roofing, plumbing, painting, all that shit. But I had gotten no pleasure out of it. Not like it was when I was in the streets. When I'm riding around in a nice-ass car, whether it be a Lincoln, a Regal, even a Cutlass, whatever it was that I had at the time, sitting on nice rims, system bumping, you're dressed nice, you look the part, you turn heads. All that was like a drug of choice for me. Robbing that bank that I did was like a spur-of-the-moment thing. But once I went into that bank and I came out, it became a rush. Like I was thirsting to go out and do it again. And I would have done it again if I wouldn't have gotten busted. How did I get busted, you ask? Some people try to speculate, but they weren't there. I was with somebody I thought I could trust, and that person turned me in. But it wasn't my intention to tell anybody what I had done, and nobody else knew except for one person. But that person opened their mouth to another person, and that's how I got busted. regardless of what that girl's career was. The main thing to all of this is when I went into the prison system for the last time, this time in the federal prison system, I realized that I had a problem. I knew that I had been sitting on abuse that I had experienced when I was 14 years old for well over 20 years. I was sitting on it, never spoke about it, never talked about it. When I got busted in that bank robbery, that was the first time I had told somebody that I was sexually abused as a kid. Almost went into the full detail of it all, the best way that I could remember it at that very moment in time. The FBI agent that was listening to it said, what does this got to do with this bank robbery? It's got everything to do with this bank robbery because that's what I was doing with my criminal behavior. I was numbing myself. I was trying to convince myself that there was nothing wrong with me, that I wasn't different. Because there was nothing wrong with me, and I wasn't any different than anybody else. I was never allowed to seek counseling because of the aftermath of all that shit. So I had to live with it. That kind of extreme trauma leads to several different outcomes. Drugs, crime, institutions, suicide. You guys don't know how many times I've wanted to take myself out. I never truly liked myself. I didn't like the things that I did. I used to be with people to go collect people's dope debts. I used to love that shit. The fear, people sitting there begging, please don't beat me up or all that. There was one time I was in the county jail, and it wasn't too long before I got busted in this bank robbery, maybe about 8 years before that bank robbery. I'm sitting in the county jail, and there's this kid. He's looking at me. He's staring at me. He's like just staring right at me. He's a homie, too. And he came up to me. He says, hey, man, is your name JD? And I said, yeah. He said, what's up, homie? He told me who he was. He said, I know you don't remember me, but you knew my dad. And he told me who his dad was, and he told me how he seen me. Me and my boy went up to this fool's pad, beat his ass in his backyard. And I remember when he was laying there bleeding and beat up, I looked up to the window, and I seen this boy looking out at me. For a second, I felt some kind of remorse. Like I just beat this kid's dad up, and he saw the whole thing. But that quickly faded away with the next job, the next lick that we went on. Years later, this kid approached me in the county jail and said that was me. I didn't even know what to say to this kid. What do I tell him? What do I say? I said, hey, man, if you're looking to get some kind of payback or something, you already know we don't. No, homie, it's all good. Fuck my dad. He's a dope fiend. He probably had that coming. I would have did the same thing. You see how sick and twisted that lifestyle is? It's a drug. It's a drug of choice. We're all just getting high off of the misery of others, and we're all just getting high to numb our own misery because deep down inside, we feel a strong sense of worthlessness because that's all we can amount to is being a criminal, a gang member, a drug pusher, pimp, armed robber, whatever it is, hitman, stick-up dude, jump-out boy, do-low, popping, door-kicking, whatever you are. That's really not amounting to nothing because the retirement plan is death or a life term in prison. I'm lucky that I beat either one of those outcomes because I chose to do something different. I chose to address my drug problem when I was in the feds, and originally I went to what's called the RDAB unit, the Residential Drug Abuse Program. And when I was talking to the lady in there, she's like, so what is your drug of choice? And I said, my drug of choice is crime. Oh, well, that's not a drug. Oh, yeah, it is. Because I got high off of it, and I went through withdrawals when I couldn't do it. Oh, well, that's not what we're talking. We're talking about an actual substance you put in your body. Okay, well, I did all that too. I almost got denied for that program, but because I had a drug charge once upon a time, a possession, I was able to get into that program, and thank God that I did. Because it was cognitive behavioral therapy that was actually the defining moment for me. It was the ability, it was the means to unlock all of these hidden chambers in my mind that was pushing me in this direction. And without it, I never would have changed. I wouldn't even be here right now talking to you. I'd be out there fucking pulling a lick, doing something, probably be dead. As old as I am, I would realize I got nothing to lose at this point. I got one big score to make, and it better be big. Because at my age, the next term I do, I won't see the streets until I'm in my 60s or 70s. Maybe never even at all. That is one of my big things that I am trying to push. This awareness in an addiction for the criminal lifestyle itself. Way too many people try to make drugs their scapegoat. It's the drugs that made me do it. But what made you use the drug in the first place? You have to ask yourself that question. What is it that you're running from? For me, it was abuse. It was ridicule. It was being bullied. All these things that I had to experience that turned me into the monster that I was for so long. You have to address that shit, or else you're going to keep getting high. If I didn't learn how to address it, I was going to still be getting high off them streets. And all the heroin and meth and everything that was with it, par for the course. All the hood rats and all that stuff that's around you, people trying to backstab you, you better sleep with one eye open at all times because somebody's going to get you. What a rush, man. Like a straight shot of pure syrup into the main vein. So yeah, that's the thing that I always try to tell people. When I was in that drug program, I started telling people, quit blaming drugs for your problems. I was blaming crime and the environment for my problems, but it was me. It was something that was going on inside of me that led me to that in the first place. I don't have no desire to use any kind of substance. I don't have any thoughts of ever going out there and cutting corners and busting a lick and breaking the law. Because I finally addressed what the problem was. I spoke about being abused to a room full of criminals, convicts, inmates, whatnot, prison staff, over 100 people. It never gets any easier, of which I always thought that it would, but it don't get any easier. But the one thing that I could do is continue to move forward and to continue to convince myself that I've got this under control. The minute I lose control, it's over with. You already know what it is, and you heard it right here. Prison Break Raw, uncut, uncensored, no holds barred, not sugarcoat, not politically correct, all up in your face, slapping you with that dick of reality. And I'm out.